Welcome to Inside Independent Publishing with IBPA. I'm your host, Christopher Locke. I'm also the IBPA Director of Membership and Member Services. Okay, so one of the most effective methods for independent publishers and author publishers to sell books is through direct-to-consumer sales. Motina Books publishing owner, Diane Windsor, joins the podcast today to share tactics that have worked best for her, including selling books directly through her website, in-person events, and more. Welcome, Diane. How are you?
Hi, Christopher. I'm good. How are you doing?
I am fantastic. So I want to start with your publishing company, Motina Books. What inspired you to start Motina Books?
I just really wanted to be able to help women and mothers get their stories out into the world, because it isn't that easy these days to get a traditional publishing contract, especially for a first-time author. And even though I'm very small, I have the ability to help them do that. So that's what gave me the idea.
And how long have you all been around?
Since 2016.
Okay.
Yeah, we're not super prolific. We do a few books a year. That's about it. But still, it's a lot of fun as a passion project for me.
Yeah. I was going to see how many you publish per year. It's helpful for people to kind of see like where everybody, is who's on the show. They're like, okay,
Right.
Where are they in their career? But congrats on all the success you've had so far. And later, I do want to talk to you. I know you have some author services and things like that. So I'm interested to hear about how you got that going and, all that. So we'll talk about that later. But let's talk about selling direct to consumers.
Yeah.
So you have a publisher website, and first we'll start with print books. So I want to understand, how, as a publisher, do you sell directly through your website? Like, do you use an e-commerce platform?
Right, I do. So the biggest benefit to authors and publishers for selling direct to the consumer is we're cutting out the middleman, right? So basically, if you don't have Amazon, you don't have other retailers, you get to keep more of the proceeds, more of the royalties. But also, in addition to that, we get to know our customers, our readers. We get their contact information. We can probably put them on a mailing list. So that's a big benefit, to be able to reach out to them more than once. So I build my website using WordPress. And I know that there are a lot of options out there, a lot of different website platforms. I believe you and other authors I know use PubSite. There's Wix, there's Squarespace. There's a lot of different options. I like WordPress because if I needed to do something, I can usually find a plugin that will let me do that task. And that's what happened with an e-commerce solution. So I use the WooCommerce plugin for WordPress to sell directly from my website. And I use that to interface with lulu.com because they allow me to do it that way. They allow interfacing with WooCommerce and Shopify. And they have wonderful instructions on exactly how to set that up. You can find videos on their website. Now, lulu.com is a print-on-demand provider, similar to Ingram Spark or KDP. But they let you do this plugin, this interfacing with your own website to sell direct.
Yeah. So something like Shopify and WooCommerce, that's the platform that is, people coming to your site, they'll buy the book through that, and then Lulu will then print it for you and ship it too, probably, right?
That's correct.
Yeah. And so, one of the things about, something like that, that seems really helpful is it does seem like if you're selling directly through your website, that having to ship your own books and keep inventory, either in your house or in some other place, can be a pain. So it sounds like you found a way around that.
Right.
With
authors have been doing that for quite a while.
Yeah.
They would keep boxes of books in their website, in their house, sorry. And then fulfill it on their own, fulfill the orders, which is, I'm not saying you shouldn't do that. That is simply another way to sell directly. And it is cool because if you do that, you can autograph the books. When you're selling print on demand, it doesn't come to you. You don't touch it. So it just goes to the customer. which is good because we don't want to have to fulfill every single order that we get. But it's also nice to be able to autograph books and create a little package for your reader, maybe that you can send out to them.
Right. So if people do want to do something special, like an author, to sign the books, or if they want to do merchandise in addition to the books, then they can do it where they're the ones shipping. But it'll, so it's a little extra work, but mostly the important thing is just when people are buying stuff is to know how much it's going to cost to ship all that and to factor all that into, so you are not just breaking even, but of course you're making money. So
right,
yeah.
Exactly.
And now
this is a great solution. This Lulu solution is wonderful, and I know that IBPA provides member benefits for Lulu.
Yeah, members get a printing discount from Lulu. Yeah, now I know a lot of IBPA members as well as publishers and author publishers out there use Ingram Spark. So what about them in terms of having some type of e-commerce?
They have a cool solution too. It's if you just kind of want to get your feet wet a little bit with this direct sales from your website solution, they have a great way to do that. It is called their e-commerce link. And if you log into your Ingram Spark account, on the right side on the menus, there's a new menu selection called e-commerce. And you can create a purchase link for any books that you have published with Ingram Spark. And you can then put that on your website. Now you'll get you still get more royalties than if you were selling through a retailer. So, but there's also, so you pay the cost of the book plus I think like a $3 service fee per book. And then you go ahead and you set the sales price right there. And so you can choose the format of your link. I have it up here. I'm looking at it. It can be a standard URL, a QR code, or it can be an embedded HTML tag. And either any of those you can put on printed material or in your website or in an email, whatever works best for you. And I have used this solution as well as the Lulu solution, and it works fine, except you don't get the information about your buyer.
Right. So that might be something people should think about. And of course, as you said, you want to get the information of who's buying your books. So, one, you can reconnect with them if another book comes out. You can ask to put them on your newsletter. And then you can see like if there's, let's say a particular bookstore, library, whoever's buying them, if they're buying like a lot of books or just certain customers are buying books, then you're like, okay, I know how to target to them. But if you are working with something like Ingram Spark, which has many benefits, one of the downsides is that you're not getting the names of the people who are buying your books.
Right. That's really the biggest downside.
Now, we were talking about publisher websites. So I will say, actually, I currently, my website is through WordPress. Something I find difficult is that I'm not like a genius with, like creating websites. So anytime I need to make changes, I need them to update it. And it can be a bit of a pain and cost money every time. Sounds like you're savvier than I am. And so that's great. But I will say you mentioned, so PubSite, QuillShift, those are two companies that specifically create really cool templates for publishers' websites. So and our members get discounts on those. Another one we don't have a member benefit for, but also a lot of people use is Squarespace, and they have an e-commerce platform too. So
I think with Shopify too. I think Shopify plugs in with Squarespace pretty easily. Shopify also has their own website solution or product. WooCommerce, I believe it is simply a product that you add on to WordPress. I think they kind of specialize on WordPress sites.
Yeah. So I want to ask about we were talking about print books, but what about ebooks? Like, is there a separate way that you sell your ebooks directly to consumers?
There is. I am a big fan of Bookfunnel. And Bookfunnel is a service that allows you, authors and publishers, to deliver digital content to your readers. And so you can deliver ebooks, you can give them away, or you can sell them through Bookfunnel. They also have a new plan for delivering audiobooks.
So then with Bookfunnel, so, we were talking about let's say Ingram Spark or something, they have a solution to get your ebook out to a bunch of places. And then of course, KDP, people can upload their Kindle file. So what's the difference between all these things? Bookfunnel, Ingram Spark, KDP, what do you do all of them? And if so,
I do not.
Okay.
That's a good point. And everybody has a different strategy, right? So with Ingram Spark, I strictly publish print books with them. I do not use them for ebooks, but you bring up an excellent point, because you can use their e-commerce links for any books that that are published through them. So you can also create one of these e-commerce links for ebooks. So you can do it that way. KDP, they specialize with their Kindle for ebook, right? They sell their books strictly through Amazon. Well, unless you do their expanded
distribution.
What is that? Expanded service. And I don't do that because I use Ingram Spark for that. But again, different publishers, different authors use these different services in different ways. And there's no wrong way. I'm not saying that. I just have discovered that doing it this way is the best way for me. I don't think with Kindle, you can really sell it directly from your website. If you want to sell an ebook through Amazon, then you just link directly to Amazon.
And
does that sound right?
Yeah, I know. Yeah, with your, I know they have things like some affiliate links and stuff like that. But so so you've got your website, you're using WooCommerce, but that's only for print. So, and then you have your ebooks. So just talk me through, what does your website look like? You know what I mean? How do people go on the website and then they want to buy a book?
Make a purchase. Okay. Yeah. So if you go to my website, motinabooks.com, I've got a menu item at the top that says books, and you can choose by author, or you can just go look at all of our books available. So you see a book that's interesting, you click on it, and there are buttons on the page. So there's a description about the book, says who it's by and everything. But it says I've got a button for buy the ebook, and that'll go to a Bookfunnel page. You can you pay for it and you download it. If you want to buy the paperback, it'll take you to a Lulu, interface. Same thing with buy the hardcover. I'm still working on the audiobook solution.
Yeah. Well, I can tell people, so with audiobooks, IBPA does have StreetLib. They distribute ebooks and audiobooks. We have a discount with them. And then Amplify Audiobooks is another you can sell directly through that for audiobooks. So those are helpful. So that gives me an idea then of how you kind of split things up. And then I'm assuming you also have links to different, the retailers, not just directly through you.
I made the decision that from my website, the purchase links were going to be direct sales links. Okay. I do not have a button on my website for a book that says buy from Amazon or buy from Bookshop or buy from Barnes and Noble. That's a strategy decision that I made. I think that's best because people know if they want to buy a book, they can go to Amazon, right? And I want to support my authors the best way that I can. And I think that is by selling directly to customers, to readers.
Right, because you're getting the information and you and them then benefit from getting a higher royalty. And so you're able to, give that to them and you're able to keep your lights on. But that's very interesting that you made that choice. Was it nerve-wracking at all when you were like, oh my gosh? But it sounds
a little bit.
Yeah.
Oh, it was a little bit because it's different people they have these expectations, and it's she doesn't have a button on her website to go to Amazon. What's up with that? And it's well, I made the decision. I think that this is best for me and my authors.
Great. Okay, so we talked about getting customers information. Real quick, I just want to talk about newsletters. So you then, you ask them if you can add them to your newsletter. Like, how often do you send out a newsletter?
Not as often as I should.
Mm.
It's so important to be consistent
Mm.
with your newsletter, with your mailing list, so that your readers know when they can expect something from you and what's going on. You don't want it to be too often. I think once or twice a month is just fine. I think that's plenty. But like I said, you need to be consistent, and I certainly need to be better about that.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Okay. So let's talk about in-person events, because that's another very important way to sell directly to your
Yeah,
readers. And I know that you do a lot of that. So I wanted to ask you, I think what we can do is we'll list the types of in-person events you go to, and then we can dig deeper into each one. So just offhand, like, what are the types of in-person events that you attend every year on
sure.
behalf of your authors?
They're so much fun. I love in-person events and meeting readers in person and getting to talk to them and everything. There are many libraries around the country are doing these indie author fairs, and those are so much fun. I love supporting my local library. I have volunteered with my library for several years, and it's a really nice win-win. They like to support indie authors too, so that's great. Um, I've done the Texas Book Festival,
Mm.
and it's really big, and so many people go through that. It's a little difficult to get people to come to your booth because there's so many options there. So it's almost better to participate in smaller ones.
Mm.
There's a great little indie bookshop in Denton, Texas called Patchouli Joe's, and they support indie authors and publishers too. So they'll have Indie Author Day where just a few people will be in their bookshop, but they had a big indie book fair this spring, and that was a lot of fun.
Mm.
There are literary organizations in Dallas, and there's one called the Writers Garret, and they put on their literature festival called Dallas is Lit every year. And I participated in their book fair in May, and that's a lot of fun too.
Mm.
So, but, I've been talking about Texas. I'm in the middle of moving to Colorado. So I've already started Googling, okay, Colorado book festivals. What can I participate in? And it's not hard to find them, Christopher. It really isn't. You just start Googling and you find various events that people put on to help support indie authors and help get books out there for readers.
Yeah. Well, yeah, because something I wanted to ask you about. So I know when I was first starting out, the in-person events have been very good for me too. I find that readers really enjoy for me, I'm an author publisher, so meeting the author themselves. Mm-hmm. You sign the book, you talk to them. They seem to really enjoy that. You're the publisher. Do any of your authors, by the way, join you at any of the events?
Yes, I do have authors all over the country, but if they happen to be local and if we happen to be together, yes, we'll do them together, you're right. It is more fun for the reader to connect with the author than the publisher. I'm just the publisher. So
publishers are amazing. We love you all. Yeah. So, because one thing I was going to ask about is, I know that for me, something that was prohibitive was with travel. You have to think, okay, the cost of all the travel versus how many books I'm going to sell. And so I did a few events that were in other states. And at some point I was like, well, I'm glad I'm getting the exposure, and it's great for my social media to be like, I'm in New York City this week. Yeah. And I kept thinking, I'm going to be meeting different readers because I live in like Los Angeles. And I was like, there's a whole new group of readers. But at some point I was like, yeah, but man, I'm really not like making as much money and or losing money. So do you do mostly local events then?
I do, for that reason, honestly. But I also really enjoy connecting with my local community. I like meeting the people where I live. That's why I mean, Texas is big. But I really haven't had a problem traveling to different parts in Texas. That's fun. And I'll do the same thing when I move to Colorado. I'm really excited about connecting with my local literary people. And I've already started creating a list. I know of authors in Colorado, and they're all like, we need to get together. And I'm like, yes, so I can get these people and we can have a little book fair or at a local library or maybe at an indie bookshop.
Hmm.
That'll be fun.
Well, in that, you brought up a really great point there. So I've definitely found that when you have teams of authors, teams of indie publishers that get together to do an event, it's so much more successful than, one person. Like, again, I would do an event and I was like, well, nobody knows who I am. So, like I would get people showing up to the first one or two, but at some point then, I ran out of people I knew and my network and all that. So if you make an event out of it, if you have
Right.
5 other local indie authors or indie publishers and they all come together and they sell children's books or YA books or books about animals or whatever it is, then it turns it into something exciting for people to come to.
Exactly. Exactly. Yeah. And if you approach your local library with this idea and say, hey, I've got like a group of 5 or 6 authors and we would love to come to your library for a book signing event. Local libraries are always looking for fun event ideas that will help bring the community into the library.
Mm.
Because then they can, show off all of the cool things that their library is doing for the community that people might not know about. So I think libraries are a great way to get out there.
Yeah. And when you reach out to the library, like who are you reaching out to?
I have been living in a fairly small Texas town, and so I would go straight to the library director.
Mm-hmm.
You could just walk in and talk to the people at the circulation desk, and they'll connect you with the right person. Sometimes it's also the Friends of the Library organization that handles these events. So you'll just have to find out who the right person is.
Mm-hmm. Okay. So you mentioned when you were talking before the podcast, you did a literary group had you come in Dallas, and I wanted to see when you do something like that, like what are you pitching? Is it a presentation you're doing? Like how do you say I'd be a good fit to come to talk to y'all?
A lot of these literary organizations, they have writers groups, they're aspiring authors. And so in my case, they were happy to talk to a publisher. So I had a presentation that was all about, you've written a book. Now what are you going to do? So like your different options for publishing your book. And so that was great. And then in conjunction with that conversation, I also had a table set up with books from different authors of mine and giveaways.
Okay. And then
gotta have swag.
Yeah. So I wanted to ask about that. So you have something like that, you're able to sell books in person. You go to like a book fair, like the Texas Festival, you're selling books. But like, what about at the library event? Like, are you bringing books to sell or what are you doing at that?
That was actually a surprise to me because I figure a library, they're not about selling books, but yes, they allow authors and publishers to come to these events and you're allowed to sell books at the library. So yeah, that was great.
Oh, okay.
I published a book of poems by a cowboy poet from Oklahoma this year. And we had an event at my local library and yeah, we sold books and we had snacks. It was great. It was a great event.
Cool. And then what are you using as your point of sale platform?
I use Square. I have a Square reader. It's, very easy. You can tap or you can swipe.
And you connect it to your phone, your tablet?
This is one of the newer ones. So it's Bluetooth enabled. So yes, it's Bluetooth to my phone and the app is on my phone, but it's super easy. People can just tap or swipe their card on the little Square reader device. And I have been at events in the past year where I didn't even bring change because most people use cards to pay for items these days. Right. So I'm not saying that's really the best thing. I should have brought change because you never know. You might get somebody who wants to pay cash, but so many people these days just use a card to pay for stuff or Apple Pay. I was having people just tap their phone right on the Square reader. I'm like, oh, okay. And that was great.
Yeah. Well, I mean, obviously cash, there's no cut. So like with Square, PayPal, they will take a cut. But like you were saying, like when I do events, keeping track of the money can, be like a little difficult. So it's easier to just do a credit card. But yeah, I would always bring, whatever, dollar bills or something. And I would round up, like, let's say my book's $14.95. I'd be like, it's $15
Correct.
for the event. I'm not going to hand out a bunch of nickels.
Exactly.
Yeah. So when you go to these events, I'm interested in the supplies. What are you bringing physically to the event? Sometimes I know festivals will provide a table, but I'm assuming sometimes you probably have to bring your own.
Yeah. Yep. I've got fold up tables. I've got a 6 foot and a 4 foot. So it just depends, like you said, on the event. Sometimes they supply a table, sometimes they don't. I have a tablecloth. I've got one of these printed table runners that has the name of my company and my logo and the book covers of some of the books that I have published. I really try to make it an attractive table. I use like decorative crates to create a little bit of height. And so I've got, books in the crates and on top of, and then of course I use, I think they're actually like little plate stands, and then you can put a book on them so they're standing up. And just to make it attractive, I've got, if I have some kids books, I'll have like maybe some coloring pages or a word search with the little packets of crayons, like 4 crayons, like you get at the restaurant, if they give you an activity sheet for your kid. And I give those things away to kind of attract more traffic to my table.
Right. So you have free giveaways to get people to come to the table. And then when they're there and you're like, I also sell books.
That's right. Exactly. And we can't forget my cookies. I brought my cookies. I know that we're podcast is audio, but I print edible book covers, and then I attach them to the cookies. And these are great giveaways. People love these.
Yeah. So for people listening, she just showed a book cover on a cookie, and you have an edible printer that prints your book covers, and they're like good. Like it's not like it's not like a smudged, and you're like, is that a human? No, it's like literally
it's
the
amazing.
cover. Yeah, it's really impressive.
So I buy frosting sheets, and that's what runs through the printer instead of paper. And I use edible ink, of course, and it works really well.
Yeah, that's a really interesting, clever idea. I like that. And, I know for me, something I also, to get people to come to the table is, a bookmark. I have some type of thing that, advertises the book, a postcard, something that people can easily take. Cause sometimes they'll say, I don't know if I want to get a book now, but if they have something they're taking home that has the name of your book and your website, then they really may, look into it later, and especially with something like a bookmark where they're using it, so yeah, I'm all about those types of things. And then, you and I were talking also about holiday end of year events. Can you tell me what do you do specially, to help entice people to make your books like a gift for someone?
Yeah. That's a great point, because this time of year or the towards the end of the year, you don't have to have a table just because you're selling books. It doesn't have to be a book festival. Go to a holiday market or something, and it's a wonderful idea to package your books really nicely. Maybe you create a holiday ornament that is related to your book, and you can go ahead and sell it with your books. Just make it special. I have one author who writes historical fiction, and she's got a whole series that we're publishing that's about Texas historical fiction. So it would be really easy for me to find some Texas themed little gifts to go along with her book series or 1 or 2 of her books. And that would make a really nice holiday gift for somebody.
Yeah. And we even talked about making it as easy as possible on them, where you bring wrapping paper to this event so that you're wrapping it for them, and you make it look nice. And I think that anytime you're helping people, they're when they come to an event and they go, oh, this will be a great book, a great gift idea, then it just helps them. And we talked about earlier about collecting emails for a newsletter. So absolutely, when you're doing in-person events, you should be collecting people's emails. I used to do the paper where people would write, but I found that, sometimes people's, writing is illegible. So I get home and be like, great, I can only read like half of these. So I recommend having your tablet or something where they can actually go to your newsletter digitally and just type in and join your newsletter there.
That's really good advice. Yeah, that's brilliant.
So how many of these types of events are you doing a year?
Oh boy, 4 or 5.
Okay, 4 or 5.
4 or 5. I mean, but I think if I tried harder, I could probably find more to do.
Mm.
There seem to be more in the spring and summer. That kind of seems to be book festival season.
Well, I wanted to ask about the concept of success with these in-person events, because I was saying earlier about, like when I would travel further and then I was like, okay, how much money did I even lose? So how do you determine that was a successful event?
So if you want to just go by the numbers, you can certainly say, my goal was to sell this many books at this event. If you sell that or more, then a success. But it's also about, meeting people and starting a relationship, of course. So how many new email addresses did I acquire for my mailing list? That's one measure of success. But I have found that if I make a point to talk to and meet the other exhibitors, the other vendors at these events, you never know if you're going to create a new relationship where you can help each other. So I think that's another way to measure success.
Mm-hmm. And I'm also wondering then, with the, like this idea of, success, in this grand scheme of the ways that you sell your books, like, we talked about in person, we talked about selling through your website, like in terms of, like book sales and all that, like where do these stand in terms of like where you sell the most books?
So I am at the point right now where about 30 to 40% of my sales are coming from my direct sales on my website. So I'm pretty happy about that. I'd like that to get even higher. So that's one of my goals for next year, is to keep working on these direct sales specifically for my website. I want to kind of train my authors to point their readers to my website instead of to Amazon or to another retailer. So it's like when they're sending out their newsletters or when they're talking to readers about where books are available, send them to the website instead of to Amazon.
Interesting. Okay. Yeah. Because that's something I was going to ask that we didn't talk about yet, is how you're driving readers to your website. So one way is getting your authors to do it, but what are the other ways that you're getting people to come to your website rather than buying it directly from like Amazon or something?
Right. It's the mailing list and the newsletter and also social media. I'm trying to learn more about how to be successful on social media. There are several different training experts that I'm following and trying to learn more about that. Okay.
So I want to round things out. We talked earlier about the idea that you do author services in addition to, your publishing company. And I'm interested, is this something that you right from the get-go you were doing, or if not, at what point did you say, oh, in addition to being a book publisher, I'm going to do this as well?
Yeah, I've known other publishers who do this. Like as we are learning more about different processes and best practices, then it's, I'm happy to help train other authors and author publishers on how to do those things. So, or if somebody needs a book formatted, I'm happy to do that. So that's one of the services that I offer. The cookie sheets, the frosting sheets, that's a service that I'm offering as well. Yeah.
Oh, interesting. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, because I was going to...
You make the cookies and I'll print out the images of your book cover and send it to you.
So it was, because I know, like there's people that do hybrid publishing where it's a portion of the
Yes.
like let's say the printing costs or the marketing or whatever. So
Yep.
that's to help to publish the book. But you're not doing that. You're a trade publisher. You covered all the costs of the whole production of the book. You do a completely separate service where you have services for authors. It sounded like maybe even other indie publishers. Like, do you have services for them, or is it just authors?
You know what? I am going to check my website and tell you exactly what's on it, because I don't remember.
You're like, who do I serve?
I know.
Because what interests me is, as an indie publisher, it can be quite difficult to make ends meet. So I find it interesting all the ways that publishers are, like in addition
making
to publishing book, right. You're like, I gotta be, because you want to stay a publisher, but it's really hard to, the margins are so small when it comes to like just books.
And for me, I don't want to be a hybrid publisher. I like the traditional model, and I'm going to stick with that. Okay, so book marketing training for authors. Yes, that's something that I do. I provide consulting services to help authors with their book marketing plan, because we all know that a lot of authors just want to write, but they cannot do that anymore. It is the author's responsibility to sell their books and to market their books. They cannot depend on anybody else. And there are ways to do that. And I think that the most creative, out of the box marketing ideas are the most successful. The media kit template. So I did a presentation, a workshop with another publishing organization earlier this year about how to get your book in local media, get your book in the news. And one tool for doing that is creating a media kit. And I created a template on Canva. And so I sell that template to make it easy for an author to create a pretty extensive media kit for their book. Yes. So
these are great. Yeah, I mean, like I said, I love how creative indie publishers are getting, where I work a day job. I'm an author publisher. I work a day job, and I do absolutely love it. But I know that it's ideal if you can do your passion, and then that's how you make your living, is you're doing your passion. So you, as an indie publisher, making a living doing that. But in addition, something that is still publishing that you're doing, so that you can make ends meet, but you're still, rather than you having to go and, get a job, somewhere where you're like, well, this isn't exactly what I want to do.
Sure.
So
yeah, you have to be creative. You have to provide different services. And, I know that a lot of publishers, they have courses that, an author can purchase, and then they can go through it on their own time. That's a great way to get some additional income too.
Okay. Well, I'm so appreciative of all this information. I hope people try to use some of these tactics. We're going to start seeing a lot of edible book cover cookies.
That's right.
That's going to be the
so
new
much
thing.
Fun.
So please, everyone, check out motinabooks.com, MOTINA books.com. Diane, I really appreciate it. I know you have, you said, things on your website, like a one-sheet template like that.
That's great.
Yeah, people can get that on motinabooks.com. So check that out.
And I had an author tell me once that she thinks her one sheet is her most valuable marketing tool.
Great. Well, there you go. Everyone should go to the website and get that, so you have a great marketing tool. And then everyone listening, please take advantage of all the IBPA member benefits. Visit ibpa-online.org. And we're here to help publishers thrive. That's why we have this podcast and many other benefits. So check those out. This podcast airs the last Thursday of every month. We have YouTube, we have it here, audio. So please check us out every month. Again, Diane, thank you so much. I really appreciate all the information and
thank you,
being willing to share. Thank you.
Yeah.